So the question of the running out of water in the fire hydrants. Now, I understand that maybe the answer is that had that reservoir not been emptied, there wouldn't have been a problem. But every system has a failure at peak load one way or another, right? It's like, is it possible that there really was, that this is just, it's such an extreme circumstance that there really was almost no way to overcome the peak load problem? Is there any legitimacy in that sort of excuse?
It's a reasonable question. And, I think the thing you have to keep in mind, though, is so for example, if you say, if all the reservoirs had been full and they had still run out of water, that's still not the end of the story, because then you have
the Bel Air conflagration. Santa Ana. Indians named it Santana, the devil wind. When it blows, plants wither, trees and brush become crackling dry. Atmosphere grows tense, oppressive. People tire easily, argue more. Even the suicide rate rises during the months of the Santa Ana. Warm, dry. This climate plays an important part in attracting over 3,000 people a month to the city of Los Angeles to become permanent residents. To settle into hotels, apartments, homes along the coast, inland throughout the central residential sections to the far reaches of the valley areas. And some move up to the scenic, secluded hill areas, where lush California vegetation softens the ridges and valleys for miles in every direction, and breezes blow clean through native growth. And increasingly strong during the late fall months of the Santa Ana, and dangerously dry when there has been no rain. It is during this unstable period that firemen most fear the potential. The potential of 134 square miles of thick, dry chaparral and oak, all within the city boundaries of Los Angeles, classed by experts as the fastest burning ground cover in the Western Hemisphere. And nestled in that cover, one of the greatest concentrations of high-value homes in America. A serious problem in fire protection under even the best of conditions. On the morning of November 6, 1961, fire department dispatches. On the morning of November 6, 1961, fire department. On the morning of November 6, 1961, fire department. Dispatches find conditions far from the best. Santa Ana winds are strong, gusty. Humidity and moisture content of the brush, rock bottom. Fire danger, extreme. At 8:03 a.m., a condition of high hazard is declared throughout the department. Standby companies are moved up to stations near brush areas to strengthen the circle of protection. Trouble strikes. At 8:15, an alert of fire is relayed to the officer in command of mountain firefighting units.
Mountain Patrol and all units concerned. They reported brush fire in the mountain area, 3600 block Stone Canyon.
The division chief responds immediately. Clouds of brush smoke are already visible on the ridge. The chief calls for additional companies. The fire, starting from its point of origin north of Mulholland on Stone Canyon, spreads out along canyon walls in three directions. First arriving units succeed in stopping it on the north, east, and west flanks before it reaches threatened homes. But there is no stopping it on the south. Winds are driving the flames fast and hard toward Mulholland. The chief declares a condition of major emergency. The master plan of defense against a serious brush fire begins. Support from air tankers is requested. 15 additional engine companies roll out. All key personnel are alerted and special mountain firefighting equipment dispatched. Deputy and division chiefs move up to take command of field units as radio messages crackle in.
The fire is over the top. It's heading straight down Stone Canyon. Engine 31, 45, 46, and 67 move directly into the fire.
Fire has jumped Mulholland at the crest of the Santa Monicas, headed toward Bel Air. To these men, brush fires are routine, but this one is pushing them hard. Time is vital. Fire is spreading, growing by the minute. Air tankers sweep in. Fire danger is compounded by ground winds, the Santa Ana driving through at 50 miles an hour to hurl burning brands ahead of the main front. 100, 200, 300 feet ahead, other places are starting spot fires that appear from nowhere. All off-duty firemen are recalled to hold back what may come if the wind plays tricks. And the wind does. Embers blow ahead of the fire to fall on the opposite side of Roscommon. Fire is now west of Strudella, out of Stone Canyon. Fire officers alert the command post with a new outbreak.
On top of Strudella, I can see the fire on the west side of Roscommon. It has jumped at least 500 feet further south. Fire has jumped Roscommon and Roscommon is now out of control.
Responding apparatus is directed in by helicopter. Defense Force. Badly needed help has come from county firefighting units. 22 of their engine companies and patrol rigs are at the fire. 10 more are on the way. Cat operators work directly ahead of the flames to stop their advance. 23 surrounding municipalities roll out to fill vacated Los Angeles stations to cover for city companies that have moved into the fire. South the sun. Firemen work in close as firebrands blow against the sides of houses, drive into crevices of wooden roofs, through windows, into ventilators, and bunch under the eaves of houses in glowing masses, held there by hot blasts of fire wind. Wind that bends high-pressure hose streams into worthless spray. Wind that whips roof fires into billows of stubborn flame. Where the men have water to fight with, they're holding their own. And then, without warning, some don't have water. First the pressure, then the water itself recedes from ridges. Fire companies are backed off by waves of flame. Along Strudella first, then Roscommon, then Linda Flora. The situation becomes one of scattered running battles as fire crews pick individual targets. Water is drafted from swimming pools wherever possible. But where water is limited to that in apparatus tanks, homes that are furiously burning must be passed by. And the hundreds of others threatened or just starting to burn, a difficult choice must be made. Which to fight, which to forfeit. Houses with fire front. It's as if an enemy force had suddenly launched a paratroop attack behind the lines of defense. Sector chiefs attempt to maintain order where sectors no longer exist. Flames loom up in scores of homes on scores of streets. Firemen fight in smoke-imposed darkness throughout the fire areas. Some have no water. Others have. In their concentration on the jobs at hand, none can know that 4 new crises are taking form. 6 miles northwest in a remote area of Santa Ynez Canyon, a second major brush fire has broken loose. Destroyed 9 homes and is racing toward the main fire to eventually blacken 10,000 acres. Companies are pulled from Upper Stone Canyon to help ground crews respond. An air tanker is directed in ahead of their arrival to delay the fire's progress. And in Brentwood, a third crisis. A mile and a half west of furiously burning Bel Air, a completely unexpected phenomenon takes place. Thousands of firebrands are literally dumped from the skies on this heretofore untouched section. In residential areas and hills above, the embers spread. From 60 to 70 fires suddenly blaze up, as if an aerial incendiary attack had been launched. Brentwood, a third crisis. A mile and a half west of furiously burning Bel Air, a completely unexpected phenomenon takes place. Thousands of firebrands are literally dumped from the skies on this heretofore untouched section. In residential areas and hills above, the embers spread. From 60 to 70 fires suddenly blaze up, as if an aerial incendiary attack had been launched. San Diego Freeway Complex, to envelop ridges of West Sepulveda Canyon. As fire in the space of a few minutes leaps the largest man-made firebreak in the city. Controlling this host of new fires seems hopeless. Everything possible is being thrown into the path of a conflagration that will not stop. The county, civil defense, and neighboring municipalities are taxing their own fire defense to the utmost in this fight against time and a 20-mile perimeter of sweeping flame. Men do not know where the fire stops or where it begins, or how far it will go, or how much longer. Moraga, Cantor Canyon, Bundy, Tagatay. Too many streets, too many homes that will not cool. Water that will not quench. Wind that will not stop. This is a fire that simply will not be whipped. And then in late afternoon, they get their first break. The Santa Ana diminishes. The racing fire slows to a run. Those still left in the burn area get a look at the path it has traveled. You read about the fire, ask the same question.
How can a brush fire get so far out of control within a well-protected city and do the things it does?
Let's analyze this fire and see what did happen. Some phases are difficult to explain. Why is a framework of bare wood left unharmed in a furnace of heat that crumbles masonry around it? Why does a roaring fire suddenly stop in heavy brush as if cut by a knife? Why do flames spare one house and consume identical dwellings on all sides? A general erratic, twisting, treacherous, and unpredictable. Even seasoned news cameramen can be trapped. Where these fire drafts are further compounded by the Santa Ana, results can be disastrous. On the morning of November 6th, Santa Ana winds were moving in a southwesterly direction from desert to coast. At the same time, numerous ridges of the Santa Monicas were channeling ground winds almost due south. So it was that winds were traveling in two directions at the time of the fire. When the fire reached Bel Air and consumed homes in such numbers that firestorms resulted, thermal heat lifted burning shingles and brands 2,000 to 3,000 feet in the air. Caught in the upper-level wind currents, these burning brands were carried well over a mile across Sepulveda to rain down onto the Brentwood area. Scores of spot fires began spreading to present a new crisis. This action is demonstrated in these pictures taken by UCLA's meteorological department. Now the same picture increased to many times its original speed. Deep within the smoke, burning shingles carry a mile and a half to start new fires, as shown by black smoke columns, which grow to join the main fire, approaching from the east. This leapfrog phenomenon, coupled with powerful ground winds, created a unique fire problem. As one of the nation's foremost conflagration experts puts it,
no one has ever faced this problem before. No definite line of defense could be found, and when a chain reaction of this type occurs, a fire department can do nothing more than pick out individual houses and try to save them.
If I can get out of my screen here just 1 second, there you go. It's over here. We really haven't seen all kinds of data about the area in over here either. And so that is troubling in that there is a community on the eastern end that also could be dealing with it. And of course, this area of the fire in the north is burning up into the mountains. And there's really nothing out there until you get up into the Lancaster-Palmdale area. Now, there is one other fire, the Hearst fire, a bit of good news. I don't see any fire activity in the last hour. This is all from 6 to 12 hours ago. And then we were also talking about a fire that was in the Sepulveda Basin. It was right here. It was called the Woodley Fire. Wasn't even big enough for these satellites to detect, and I talked to LA City Fire. The good news with that one, knockdown. No more active flames there. That one is out, so we are still only now dealing with the original 3 fires, but hopefully it's going to be cutting down to 2, as again, the Hearst fire up here in Sylmar doesn't seem to be as active as the 2 that are here. One other thing I want to talk about before I send it back to you. This is the aerial firefight going on in the Pacific Palisades area, and all of these icons you see here are orange, but the line that I'm looking at here, the flight path of an aircraft here that's this light-colored teal green, that's from an aircraft called Intel 12, and it is actually on its way back to Sacramento, if I can find it. It's right here. It's heading northbound, and this is the aircraft from the Governor's Office of Emergency Management that is going to be doing that fire mapping. We're going to get a much better idea of the footprint of this fire. It really hasn't been updated since midnight. So this intelligence gathering aircraft is going to be able to share that with CAL FIRE, and they're going to get a much better idea of where the fire has burned. And as for the firefight here, Fire 3, Fire 2, all of these aircraft still doing a tremendous amount of work over here. There's actually a Ventura County Fire, Firehawk now on the western end fighting that fire. So we're seeing a tremendous amount of resources here, and there is certainly a fire also, Firehawk in the Altadena area that's working on the western end doing water drops over there. So the battle for aerial superiority in these fires continue, and it is hopefully going to give those fire crews on the ground some hope, as those firefighters that are at the Palisades fire, now more than 26 hours they've been fighting this one.
And he's going to show us what some of these areas, we're looking at them now, Rich, as they've been burned out. You have some technology that can show us what these neighborhoods look like before this happened.
Yeah, Frank and Jessica, we're just now in a position where we can show just how bad this fire really is, and why they're calling this the most destructive fire in Los Angeles history. And we do have the capability of using our map to give somewhat of a satellite view of a before and after image here. Now, based on our positioning here and the elevation and our restrictions with the airspace, we'll do the best we can to utilize that tool, and hopefully it will translate. But you can see just how many structures were here in this section here, right in the center of Pacific Palisades, Sunset Boulevard, and Via de la Paz. We had a Gelson's that once stood right here. This is a shopping center where there was some markets here, and then we go back to the live shot, and you can see that most of these buildings have been burned completely through. There is a gas station here on the corner that also caught fire, and it, frankly, I'm seeing more destruction here in Pacific Palisades than buildings that are standing. It's awful to see. I couldn't imagine, what we were prepared to see once we got over here on this side of the hill. Over the past couple of days, we really have only been able to see the fire from the north, basically looking from the San Fernando Valley towards the fire. But now we're in a position where there's enough clearing with the smoke that we're able to get on the Pacific Coast Highway side, and it's absolutely devastating what we're seeing here in Pacific Palisades. There's another neighborhood there. We'll switch over here to the satellite view, and those were all homes at one time, and they're just completely destroyed. One neighborhood after the other, street after street after street. Nearly the entire community of Pacific Palisades has been destroyed here over the past couple of days, and it's unbelievable. These are the hills in the main portion of Pacific Palisades. The fire, which started up along Palisades Drive, it raced down towards Sunset, and these homes in the lower elevations were the ones that got hit the hardest from that amber cast that was blazing over the top of this community. And then there was no stopping it. It just ripped through the entire community here. And it's crazy to see how much devastation we have here in Pacific Palisades. We'll get a little closer to the coast, and it burned up to the ocean. I'm seeing a lifeguard tower, building or tower station that was destroyed as well. Now let me widen out here for just a second here. I know we want to see the satellite view. It's just sometimes it doesn't translate quite as well as we want to based on the position that we are given. But this is the town of Pacific Palisades, the city of Pacific Palisades, and it's decimated. It's crazy to see here as we pan towards Pacific Coast Highway. These were communities right here along, I believe that's Temescal Canyon and Pacific Coast Highway. These people, the fire just rushed right down the hill, took every single one of them out. And, we could just imagine all these people that were frantically trying to get out in time, before the fire could race over these hills. And we're so fortunate that so many people were able to get out in time, because it could have been so tragic, if any more people had been stuck in these communities. And we'll go a little further over here towards Getty Villa, or this right here. Okay, this would be an example here. So this is, I believe, this is going to be Sunset Pacific Coast Highway. So a lot of people were funneling down here. This is at Sunset Boulevard, as we know, where all the cars were abandoned or stuck on Sunset Boulevard, and then Palisades Drive. So that's a look at Pacific Coast Highway and Sunset Boulevard. And then you go right over here towards the Getty Villa. The Getty Villa does show some signs of where it had burned right around. It looks like the building itself is standing, but then you look right over here, and the entire hillside has been taken out. Only a couple of homes, a few homes in between, still remain. I'm sure they have some sort of damage one way or another, but that entire hillside has been taken out. So again, it's awful to see what has been left in the path of this Palisades fire.
Losing your job is hard enough.